It's a funny one, isn't it? I'm preparing to talk about the police this morning and almost overlooking the fact that they're currently being firebombed in Ballymena. It's not just people who were born elsewhere who are being attacked by racist thugs in Northern Ireland at the moment. That violence, as we feared yesterday, spreading. It's always targeted at the police as well, isn't it? The same happened during the Farage riots, didn't it? I don't know why we always overlook this. As generally a right-wing position, isn't it, to be very strong on law and order. And yet when right-wing racists take to the streets of our country, it's very often the police that are in the firing line. They can't win, can they? And listen, don't waste 10pence reminding me, because I will point it out myself, that the police themselves are often found to have been pretty hideous in their approach to various issues, most obviously institutional racism, misogyny and sexism. But that's not the reason why there is a parlous air around our police. I don't know when it started. I'm also conscious of my age. I'm increasingly conscious of my age because I've reached a point now where I have to make noises involuntarily whenever I move. If I find myself getting up from a chair, I have to go, ooh, like that. Or if I sit down, I have to go, ah. Well, is there an official age at which that starts? Is it like, do you get given a little license, like making weird noise license, when you know, like younger listeners are thinking, yeah, that's my dad, or that's my grandma. Listeners of a certain age are thinking, yeah, that's me. I don't know, do we all start? Is it 51, 49? Do we all start at the same age, making odd noises when we're doing things that we never used to make noises, we never used to accompany with noises? So anyway, I think about my age a lot, and I wonder whether or not 'twas ever thus. You find, particularly if you listen to a programme like this one, or God forbid have to present it, you find yourself thinking about things in a way that will provoke conversation, and you sort of wonder, are we just circling the same location? Are we doing the same thing? Listening to some of the calls towards the end of Nick's show about the NHS, and you sort of think, well, it's the same when we talk about the police. Who really knows what's going on? You know what happened last time you went to hospital. You know what happened last time you called the police. You know what happens in your station if you're a member of the force, but you don't know what happens at the other end of the country or in entirely different circumstances. The newspapers like to jump on stories that involve foreign criminals more than they like to report upon native criminals, because that's the country that we've created post-Brexit. And again, the police will get it in the neck. Why haven't they done this? Why haven't they done that? They often can't. And shoplifting remains a particularly pungent practice. That really does speak to much more than fare dodging, I think. Perhaps it's time for honest Bob Jenrick to go out and try and catch a few shoplifters. It really does speak to a sense of, you know, that lovely analogy, probably my favourite analogy about the queue. I think it's my favourite analogy because it's so perfectly British. Albeit that the person who first introduced me to it was talking about the American electorate. But if you're standing in a queue, you are observing both ritual and rule, aren't you? You are doing things correctly when you stand in a queue, a figurative queue, a metaphorical queue, or an actual physical queue. That is why we hate people who push in. There's something really provocative about somebody who pushes into a queue, even if they do it with a sort of sanction, even if they, you know, come to meet their mate who's been queuing up and lets them into the space, or if one family member's gone to park the car and the other is nearly at the turnstile or nearly at the door, and then they come and join the one that's being queued. Even that annoys us a bit, right? Even though it's, I think, perfectly reasonable behaviour, there's a little bit of us that knows that will mean we have to stand in line for a little bit longer. Shoplifting speaks to that impulse. I think fare dodging does as well, but shoplifting really speaks to it. We'd all like to do a kind of supermarket sweep and walk out of the doors without having paid any money, but when people do it, it really hacks us off, doesn't it? And the police get it in the neck for that as well. And then, of course, again, because whenever there's a problem in this country, you can absolutely guarantee that right-wing commentators, columnists and editors will make it worse. So they pretend that the reason why the police aren't arresting shoplifters or catching criminals is because they're too busy celebrating Pride or dancing at the Notting Hill Carnival. You know, of all the nonsense that I have heard and read over my years in doing this job, the idea that the police dedicate meaningful and substantial amounts of time and energy to being nice, the idea that is somehow an awful thing to do and or so widespread and commonplace that it impacts on the the more harder-edged policing is got to be in the top 3 stupidest things that the UK media has created in the time that we've spent together. Oh, look, here's I remember taking a call I think she was a Gold Commander, but taking a call from a senior police officer with responsibility for the Notting Hill Carnival. And she just said to me, if a police officer is dancing with someone and a message comes over his radio that he's got to get to half a mile away really quickly because something's kicking off, what do you think he does? Do you think he continues his samba? Or do you think he immediately legs it towards wherever he's been directed to go? And even I, as someone who doesn't really fall for the stupidity of pretense when it comes to policing, even I sort of thought, oh yeah, I'd never really thought of that. Just because he was twerking 10 minutes ago doesn't mean that he's not sticking someone in handcuffs today, right now, at this minute. It's just nonsense. And the police get it on the neck over that as well. They get it in the neck for everything. And they get it in the neck from me sometimes because, the traditional stuff, the fact that the current commissioner still rejects the phrase institutional racism, which actually explains why cooperation level in some communities can be quite low because the perception is that the police are not on your side. I'm a white, heterosexual, middle-class man. And the police have always seemed to be on my side. So much so that I think my class probably means I'd get a little bit softer treatment in some circumstances than I would have done if I'd been born in different circumstances. So who do we know? Who do we trust? How do we do it? I don't know. Shall I read some messages just to give you a flavour of what I mean? Why not? Randomly. Or give or take randomly. As a police officer, I've seen the police getting squeezed in every direction, writes Craig in Hamilton, and support fades year on year. Too many people are waiting to jump on any indiscretion. I feel like the police are doing their job with one hand tied behind their back, and it's no longer a job I would encourage people to apply for. David says the real problem is that the police are being cut back, full stop. The Parks police have been disbanded. We no longer have a dedicated police unit in Greenwich Park. Safer neighbourhood team is being overwhelmed. John writes, my brother was a copper for 30 years, a man with common sense who loved helping people. Perhaps not the brightest star in the sky, but an honest bloke. However, they're now recruiting cops with no life experience and a distinct inability to communicate. I find this a little bit lazy, John, but it doesn't mean it's not true. Degrees are not needed at all, so they get bored and do a rubbish job for poor pay and are not supported when things go wrong. You've just veered from an excellent point to a rubbish point and then back to an excellent point. Again, it's strange, isn't it? And Paul says, welcome to the police bashing hour. As a former police officer of a decade, I left because it's a thankless task. The only one bashing the police here, Paul in Leicester, is you, describing it as a thankless task. Overworked, under-supported and underappreciated by the populace. That's why they can't recruit. Well, there's two problems. They can't recruit because people don't want to join. And I think, to paraphrase John, it may be that the force is now attracting the wrong kind of people. Or suboptimal people. And the second bit is they claim they can't afford to meet the bills. They can't afford to meet the recruitment targets. 13,000 officers are needed. The public will pay the price if they are not recruited. Police leaders warning yesterday in the aftermath of that spending review that it will be incredibly difficult to deliver the Prime Minister's election pledge within the lifetime of this Parliament. They project a £1.2 billion shortfall in police funding, but they always do. You always have. In defence and police, and to a certain degree the NHS, although I've lived through periods where most people seem to feel the NHS was being satisfactorily funded, the world of defence and the world of policing has always, I think, been punctuated with complaints about underfunding. I'm not sure any general or chief constable has ever come out and said, do you know what? We've got enough to do the job we want to do. And that's one of life's truths. That is just one of the facts of life. They will always claim they haven't got enough. Sometimes they will be absolutely accurate. Other times they will be less accurate. Which means we don't know for sure what's going on. But there is a genuine air of peril, I think, surrounding our police services. And when it is both the policed and the police that are feeling it, then we have to talk about it. acting national chair of the Police Federation, has accused Rachel Reeves of failing to listen to police officers or indeed to the Home Secretary in the lead up to the review. So the tensions between Yvette Cooper and Rachel Reeves see Yvette Cooper being perceived as being on the side of the police but not getting the money that she needs to do a better job. So what is wrong? Sometimes I don't like questions that are too big. It's a weird business, mine. Sometimes if I ask a big question, the goalposts are too far apart and you almost think it's not worth having a shot. The goalposts are too close together and you think it's not worth having a shot because you're never going to score. But if they're too far apart, sometimes, I don't mean vague necessarily, but too general. But sometimes it's the right question to ask because it means everybody can have a pop. Whether you are policed or policing, whether you are in the job or not in the job, whether you're retired from the job. What is wrong? What is wrong with this world? And police getting attacked on the streets of England and latterly of Northern Ireland, most recently. Getting, targets of genuine vitriol and hatred. And yet these are people who sign up to look after the rest of us. Hey, historic problems notwithstanding, I'm always drawn to the people who run towards trouble as the rest of us run away from it. Whether you're talking about firefighters, soldiers, paramedics or police officers, society should revere the people that run towards trouble as the rest of us run away from it. The people we call when we are in bother. I want you to tell me what you think is currently wrong. And the way into it is to ask this question. Why are the police struggling to recruit? Why don't people want to join the police service?